an independent editorial defense analysis focused on Australia's strategic environment.
Military procurement programs frequently reveal a sharp divergence between doctrinal ambition and operational reality. Few platforms within the Australian Defence Force illustrate this tension more clearly than the C-27J Spartan. Acquired initially to fulfill a specific tactical requirement for battlefield airlift, the platform spent a decade searching for a viable identity within a force structure designed for high-end integration. The trajectory of the Spartan fleet, however, has recently shifted. It has moved from a narrative of capability mismatch to one of strategic adaptation. The 2026 operational status of the fleet suggests that the Royal Australian Air Force has effectively abandoned the initial concept of a frontline combat hauler. In its place, a new role has emerged, one that prioritizes regional access and soft power projection. This evolution represents not merely a technical correction, but a fundamental realignment of how niche air mobility assets support national strategy in the Pacific. The original acquisition logic for the Spartan appeared sound. It was predicated on the retirement of the DHC-4 Caribou and the perceived need for a tiered airlift capability. The theory posited that a smaller tactical transport could relieve the C-130J Hercules fleet of short-range burdens. It was intended to provide direct support to Army units in contested environments. In practice, this tiered model encountered significant friction. The structural limitations of the Spartan meant it could not effectively transport the increasingly heavy vehicle fleet of the Australian Army. Assets such as the Hawkeye or the heavier variants of the G-Wagon 6x6 simply could not fit without significant reconfiguration or range penalties. Consequently, the aircraft was often left without a clear mission profile. It was too expensive to operate as a simple utility transport, yet it lacked the payload capacity to serve as a true force multiplier for mechanized land forces. This capability gap created a period of institutional uncertainty. The fleet appeared to be an orphan capability characterized by low availability rates and persistent questions regarding value for money. The cost per flight hour, which approached parity with the significantly more capable C-130J, further complicated the justification for retaining the platform. However, the strategic environment in the immediate region has evolved in a manner that inadvertently salvaged the utility of the Spartan. As competition for influence in the Southwest Pacific intensified, the definition of strategic airlift expanded. It moved beyond simple logistics throughput to include diplomatic access and humanitarian responsiveness. It is within this littoral and archipelagic context that the technical specifications of the C-27J have found alignment with national policy. The Pacific theater is characterized by a tyranny of distance combined with a tyranny of infrastructure. Many airfield pavements in priority nations possess low classification numbers. Locations such as Tuvalu, Kiribati, or the remote highlands of Papua New Guinea often prohibit operations by heavy transports like the C-17 or even the C-130J fully laden. The Spartan retains a distinct advantage here. Its ability to operate from austere, short, and soft surface runways grants the Australian government a sovereign method to deliver aid. It ensures access to remote locations without relying on commercial logistics or slow-moving maritime assets. To viably sustain this role, however, the platform required a remedy for its most glaring deficiency: its electronic isolation. Prior to the Avionics modernization program completing its critical phases in late 2025 and early 2026, the Spartan lacked the architecture necessary to operate safely within a modern coalition network. The $70 million Australian investment to upgrade the avionics suite addresses this vulnerability. By integrating cryptographic radio systems and Identification Friend or FOMOD 5 standards, the aircraft has been transformed. From a systems perspective, it is no longer a standalone logistical truck. It is now a networked node capable of interacting with the broader joint force. The significance of this modernization extends beyond pilot convenience. In a humanitarian assistance and disaster relief scenario, secure interoperability is critical. It allows the C-27J to coordinate directly with naval assets, such as the Canberra-class landing helicopter docks, or to receive real-time vectoring from overhead assets like the E-7A Wedgetail. This connectivity ensures that the aircraft can operate on the periphery of a contested zone if necessary. The completion of this upgrade cycle indicates a long-term commitment by the Royal Australian Air Force to retain the hull, effectively closing the debate on immediate divestment. Nevertheless, the retention of the Spartan introduces a persistent economic trade-off. The platform remains historically expensive to maintain relative to its payload. The decision to keep the fleet implies that the Department of Defense places a premium on the specific type of access the aircraft provides, a premium high enough to justify the elevated operating costs. This suggests that in the current strategic calculus, the ability to land a diplomatic delegation on a remote island runway carries a weight of utility that cannot be measured solely by cost per ton-kilometer. It represents a shift from efficiency metrics to effectiveness metrics, are prioritizing political reach over logistical volume. The industrial implications of this sustainment strategy also warrant examination. The heavy reliance on the original equipment manufacturer, Leonardo, highlights the dependencies inherent in operating a boutique fleet. Unlike the C-130J, which benefits from a massive global supply chain driven by United States demand, the C-27J supply chain is more fragmented. Ensuring high availability rates requires a dedicated sustainment effort, placing additional pressure on domestic industry partners and logistics personnel at RAAF Base Amberley. Operational history for the fleet is now being rewritten. It is moving away from the battlefields of the Middle East, settling instead into the gray zone activities of the Pacific Step-Up. The rebranding of the squadron's role to focus on humanitarian and regional support is a pragmatic acknowledgement. It admits the platform is ill-suited for the kinetic fight, but exceptionally well-designed for the engagement fight. This allows the larger C-130J and C-17 fleets to remain concentrated on heavy lift and strategic deployment tasks, preserving the service life of those critical high-demand assets. Ultimately, the redemption of the C-27J Spartan capability is a case study in adaptive force management. It demonstrates how a platform procured under one set of strategic assumptions can be repurposed to meet emerging challenges, provided there is a willingness to accept technical limitations and invest in necessary modernization. The fleet exists today not as the battlefield lifter originally envisioned, but as a specialized instrument of statecraft. It fills a niche that is physically inaccessible to other assets. This resolution suggests that while the procurement process may have been flawed, the systemic adaptation has been successful, resulting in a capability that, while costly, provides a unique and currently irreplaceable lever for Australian influence in the region.